Okay, welcome. Thanks for talking with the NEDCO viewers today about setting learning intentions for the day's lesson and checking to see if students have met them. So let's start by telling me who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Rosé. I am a 7th and 8th grade teacher at Vail Mountain School in Vail, Colorado, where I facilitate a personalized project-based program for a mixed group of 7th and 8th graders. And then I'm also national faculty with PBL Works, so I get to facilitate workshops for teachers all over.
Wonderful. That sounds amazing.
It is. Very lucky.
So as we stated, the theme for today's session is setting learning intentions for the day's lesson and checking to see if students have met them. Can you tell us what this means to you and the difference it's made for you and your students?
Absolutely. So I'll talk first from what I'm doing now in my more personalized project-based program. So the way that learning happens in my classroom is that students design their own projects based on things that they're interested in, and we take those interests and turn them into impact. So they develop project planners that are very similar to what a lot of PBL teachers do. So they build a unit for themselves, and that's inclusive of content, outcomes, skills that they really want to focus in on. And one of the parts of the process is for them to name benchmarks or milestones of how they're going to facilitate themselves through the inquiry process. So each day that we enter into our learning space, students will identify which benchmark they're focusing on for the day. They'll determine what their learning work will look like alongside of what the learning goals will be, and then they set a specific goal for their work time. So they have that opportunity to really define for themselves what the learning intention will be for themselves more independently. And they'll facilitate themselves through the process with coaching and other supports. And then at the end of the day, they go back to that goal, they document the learning that they did, and they reflect on how well they were able to meet their goal for the day. And then one thing that I really pull in is at the end of the week, we do a more substantial reflection on our progress as learners or process. So they complete Flipgrid reflections. And some of the questions that I'll ask them are, what was the purpose for your learning? What was that specific goal for the full week? So did you have an kind of overarching view of the goals? What was your process? In what ways did they work to meet their goal? What strategies did they use? What supported their learning? What hindered their learning? What were some of the takeaways that they had? Whether or not they were able to meet their goal, and if not, what were some of their next steps? And if they were, what are they thinking now? So what are their opportunities to really propel their learning? And then my favorite question that I always ask is, who did you become? Or what did you learn about yourself? And that's really an opportunity for them to think through beyond just the work and learning that I did and the products that I've created. What did I do as a learner to really advance my own thinking or growth? So that's what I'm doing now, more specifically. But in my prior experience in teaching elementary school and other levels, I also really thought through a lot of our learning times together as more of a workshop model. So we'd start that by setting learning intentions, entering into a learning experience to be able to support the development of understanding of outcomes. And then we'd break off into like work time, one-on-one support, small groups, coaching, whatever that might look like. And then I'd always plan for a catch time. So I'd watch the progress of my students and see, do we need to kind of pull back? Are they really understanding what's happening and what they're supposed to be learning about? Or do we really need to, kind of reteach or go through things in a little bit of a different way for them to be able to gain that understanding? Once that catch piece happens, moving back into that opportunity to work with groups or independently, and then have a reflection time at the end. So we would then reflect on the learning intentions. Were we able to meet our goals? If not, again, what are some of our next steps?
Awesome. That is some amazing things that you're working on right now.
Thank you.
With your current classroom, with those Flipgrid reflections, are you giving them feedback back into Flipgrid? Is it based on that conversation kind of back and forth with teacher and student?
Yeah, so I will sometimes record videos back to them or just put a comment there. We engage very frequently together in that process, but what I even love more than that is that students record their reflections, and so they're able to go back and view the reflections that they did prior in the year, prior in the project that they're in, and they can see their own growth and really reflect on, again, how have I continued to change and shape myself as a learner over time. So even more than the feedback from me, it's most beneficial for them to have that opportunity to think through how they've grown.
I love that idea, and I've never really thought about that in depth, kind of a year-long learning target, essentially, or a year-long reflective practice. I'm also thinking, and help me out if you can here, if I were, say I teach fourth grade, if I'm in math and we're talking about dividing fractions or just fractions altogether, could we do something, model a little bit of what you have, of just a constant reflection, how they're getting better based on that standard, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think what's most powerful is that reflection on your growth as a learner alongside of the understanding of the concepts, right? Because I think that those two things can look and sound very differently. So what they might learn about themselves can be even more powerful than just that gaining of understanding with the content. So building in reflective opportunities to say, in what ways have I really grown? It's almost like that metacognition, right? Are they thinking about their thinking? Are they able to really reflect on their personal growth in that way?
Yes, and then giving them that safe space to talk about that, how they've gotten better. I think sometimes as I'm talking to hear kids say, "Oh, I finally get this now," right? But if I provided them a better and a more frequent place to kind of really review that or reflect on that, I feel like I might find some more of those, light bulbs coming on a little bit. I love that idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, just getting visual or, like sharing their thinking in a different way, getting out of their own head, right? Because a lot of our kids will say like, I know it, or I just was able to do it in my head. We'll unpack that process a little bit more. And how did that continue to push your journey forward?
Wonderful. Such great information. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Great. So Kelly, is there one resource or something in your mind that you could recommend to folks who are really needed to be inspired to grow in this specific area?
I mean, I think if I'm really considering learning intentions, it's more that communication of what we're expected to learn today or what we hope to be able to do. And so I think that reflection piece is still the most critical. So instead of just really thinking around how do we communicate that initial intention, how do we know that students have internalized that and really taken that opportunity to reflect? So I would love to be able to share the reflection questions that I came up with to, really maybe give a good space to allow people to move forward with their own questions or revise from there. But if you use the questions and make them better, I want to see them back. So make sure you share them back with me. Like I'm always looking to grow my practice. But yeah, I mean, I think just the thoughtfulness that teachers can put behind their reflections. So it's not just, what did you learn today? I think that would really help the student experience be even more positive.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that resource. And we'll definitely be able to post it up on our challenge, our April challenge. And I will make sure people to tweet you new iterations when they have
Please do. Yes, I would love that.
Routine model of you going.
Yep.
And Kelly, I just appreciate your time and giving us such great information that we can take back into the classroom. And it's really been valuable. I've got like 5 different things in my head right now that I know I want to do.
I'm so glad. Well, I'm looking forward to learning more from other people too.
Kelly, thank you so much again. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Katie.